Hey guys, welcome to Indie Game Hustle. My name is Charles, and in this video for our next mechanic, we're going to try to quickly make our pickup mechanic. Our goal here is in this 3D platforming is we want our player to be able to pick up some objects in the scene and put them down somewhere else. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that's going to need. All right, so of course we're going to need some objects in the scene. I created some basic cubes here, and all they are 3D object cubes. And then if you select this cube, what we want to do is create a tag for that. And I went ahead and already at least did this part. But if you don't know how to make a tag, you simply select the object, go to where it says tag, go down to where it says add tag, and then you actually add the tag that way, okay? And then you would hit this plus key and name it. Then you have to go back, select the object, and actually select the tag. So each one of these objects are going to have the same tag called pickup underscore SM. You can name it whatever you like, but for this case, we're going to do pickup SM. SM is going to be made for small because ideally I think I'm going to have different type of objects that give kind of a different type of feel. Okay. All right. So the first thing another thing we want to do is go into Game Creator at the very top, and we want to go where it says Preferences. And here you want to create two variables. Okay. We already have is crawling, but what we need to have now is carrying, and set that to a type of bool. And then we want to create a pickup option or pickup version and set that type to a game object. Okay. So ultimately what's going to happen is when we pick up an object, it's going to store that object into this value. And so we'll keep track of it that way. Okay. And then this is going to keep track of whether or not we're carrying something or not. All right, so once you do that, I'm just gonna go ahead and close this off. Now, of course, I'm gonna take these few cubes and I'm gonna move these out of the way. I'm just gonna move them up here. So we got those, that's fine. So now we're gonna add to our mechanic. All right, so what I'm gonna do is gonna right click on mechanic. I'm gonna go create empty in this case. And then I'm gonna call it trigger dash pickup. Okay, and then I'm going to go underscore SM. All right, perfect. All right, and so to keep this as simple as I possibly can, we need to go ahead and create a few triggers ahead of time before we actually start doing anything with them. So the first trigger we need to create is going to be trigger check object. So I'm going to right click here. I'm going to go to game creator trigger, and I'm going to rename this guy trigger check object. It's just simple, just like that. I'm going to go back to pickup small or pickup SM, game creator trigger, and then this one is going to be called trigger not in range. Not in range. Okay. So this one's going to check if we're next to an object, and then this one's going to check if we're not in range of the object. So if we walk away from the box. Okay. All right. So the next trigger we're going to make is trigger. And then this one is going to be picking up object. So these are going to basically be the set of actions that we're going to take to pick up an object. And then the last trigger is going to be, you might have guessed it, it's going to be put down the object. All right, cool, perfect. All right, so the first one we're going to start looking at is checking object. All right, so the first thing we want to do is click on change trigger, and we're going to type in the word tag, and this is going to check if we actually entered the tag. And what we're going to do is select the tag we created at the beginning called pickup underscore SM. And so now we know we've entered a tag. And so let's create an action just to confirm that we entered a tag. So I'm going to select action, and then I'm going to go into this action, and I'm simply going to rename it, or at least get rid of that, leave it as actions. And I'm going to go add action. I'm going to go to debug, oops, wrong one, debug, and let's go to message, and we're just going to call it entered tag. Cool, perfect. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is create a condition. So I want to go to check object, and after it checks object, it's going to flow to the next thing, which is this condition. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one that's appended there. And this condition is going to check if we're currently carrying something. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say add clause. And then it's going to, if the variable bool is carrying is false, then we need it to do something. So in this case, we need it to set active the ability to pick up an object. Okay, so what we're going to do is hit create action right here, and you can add the action here, but I'm just going to click in here and click action, and I'm going to do set active. And then what we want to do is set active a particular game object, and that game object is going to be called picking up object. So I'm going to move this puppy right over here. And so now ultimately what's happening is when we enter this tag, it's going to check if your carrying value is false, then set this pickup object action, which is this trigger, to be true. So giving you the ability to, hey, you're not carrying something, so you should be able to pick this up. Okay, so let's go ahead and leave that like that. And let's see here. It looks like that should be working. So I will push play just to see what's happening. All right, so we have our player here with our boxes. I'm going to show the console here. All right, so what I'm going to do is move our player over to this box, and it says you entered the tag. And if yours doesn't say that, there may be a reason. Let me show you. So on our player, if you select the trigger check object, what we want to do is make sure your gizmos are turned on. And if you see here, the tag is basing this information on the spear collider. Now, if yours isn't connecting to it or it doesn't go inside of it, you can move that a little bit. So for instance, if I wanted to move this up some, you can move it up. I think I'll leave it right where it's at, but just keep in mind that that's what it's going to be based on. So, but for now, I'm going to, let's see, well, I could go like a 0.75 just to make it a little bigger, and I'll even do that on all of these for now. That may cause a problem later, but that's fine. We'll figure that out. All right, great. So I'll go ahead and hit play. And so as you can see, we entered the tag. And so every time you enter a tag, it verifies that, and that's good. That's what we want. But it doesn't know when we exit the tag. So let's go ahead and do that. And also one more thing before I ever get to that. The part where it's setting active, what we want to do is make sure picking up object is actually already turned off by default. So we want to just verify that the picking up set active is actually turning that on, as you can see. All right, great. All right, so the not in range, we're going to start working with that one, and that one's going to be very similar. It's basically on tag exit. And so on exit, when we exit the tag pickup underscore small or SM, we need it to then do something as well. Okay, and let me go ahead and clear this out. All right, so what we're going to do is have it set active the picking up object. We want that to turn off. So we're going to create another action, and it's going to be a child of the not in range. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this number 2. And when I select this, I'm just going to simply go ahead and set active the same thing, but in here, I'm going to set it to false. And then of course, I like to have some debug messages letting me know what's happening. So I'm going to move that up here. And then we're just going to put not in range. All right, great. So now that should work. So let's go ahead and do that. So when we walk over here, picking up is active. When we walk away, it's not active. And that's the way that should work. So if we're over here, but we walk over here, it's not going to show that. And it just works based on with how close you are to certain objects. All right, cool. And it should turn off and on all types of things based on how close you are. Ooh, there we go. All right, cool. So let's move on to our next trigger, and that's going to be picking up the object. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with that. I'm going to hit play there. All right, great. So the next thing we need to do is pick up an object. But before we actually do that, we're going to need a few different things. Let's see what messages I'm getting really quick here. Something to do with some scene stuff. Nah, should be fine. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to need some animations in order to do picking up and putting down. There's a really good package in the asset store. It's called crafting, I think, mechanism crafting. I'm going to head over to window. I'm going to go over to package manager, and actually I already have it prompted here. So it's called like crafting mechanism animation pack. So it's a really good pack with some good animations for picking up things and all types of things actually. So I'm going to go ahead and import this into my package. All right. And let's see here. What don't I need? Well, I don't need any code. Like I said before, I like to get rid of things that's just not necessary. I don't need these things, I don't think. Maybe, I don't know. I don't need the scenes. I don't think I need his textures. I could leave it though. I really just don't want any of the things like cameras and things like that for sure. Let's see, let's make sure it's as clean as possible. So we have animations, we have character, no code, none of these elements, got a material for them, that's fine. Animation controller, I think I just might keep that this time around. Let's see, we have our props, those could be useful for basic testing stuff. We don't want the scenes, and we'll just keep this PSD file for crafting. So yeah, that could work. So I'll leave those things, and let's go ahead and import that into our game. All right, looks like that was done already. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close this off, and let's take a look at our asset folder and see what's in here. All right, and so it looks like it's called Crafting Mechanism Animation Pack. Like I said before, I'm going to move these types of things into another folder because I have no intentions of re-importing this or updating it. It's not like a game creator asset where I would want to leave everything the way it is, but things like this I typically move. So I'm going to move this into animations. And it looks like we already have our crafting mechanism animation pack in here, so that's great. If you don't have character mask, you won't have it because I created this off camera, but generally speaking, this is character mask, and we're going to need to create a top body no head avatar mask, and I'll show you how to do that here actually right now. Let's do it. So to create this, just go ahead and create a folder called character mask, and right click here. You want to go to create, and we want to look for, where is it, avatar mask. And so you want to name it. I'm just going to do that. And then at the very top where it says humanoid, you want to change this here to look like this. So basically you want to select, or you can deselect everything, and then by just clicking somewhere here, and then you select the arms, the legs, just those things there. And I'll show you what that's doing. So basically it's masking off certain parts of the animation so that it will work pretty good. So I'm just going to leave it just like that. All right, cool. All right, so let's get back to the next thing here. So we're going to do our pickup thing. So the first thing for picking up an object, we want to pick it up using a key. So we need a key down trigger. So what we're going to do is go to input on key down, and I'm going to use the number or the keyboard key C. All right, and then once we do that, we're going to need some actions, okay? And let's see here. So what I might do is select conditions, and it's going to create a child of that. And then this condition, I want to get rid of that. And then in this condition, we want to be able to only pick up an object when our is carrying is false, okay? So I want to add a clause. I'm going to go to variables, and we'll see if this works. It should work. We go to variables. We're going to go to bool, and we're going to change is carrying. And so we want to check if is carrying is false, then we want to do this particular action, okay? And so let's start setting up our actions. So what you want to do is go ahead and click on create action. It's going to create another action. You can put them here, but I typically just select this and go here. All right, so the first action that we are going to create is a picking up debug message. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go debug message, and then we're going to do picking up object. All right, picking up object. And debugging just helps you know what's going on in the scene, right? All right, and the next thing is we're going to get the nearest object with a tag. So basically what that is I'm going to type in the word tag in our search key, search area here, and we're going to select nearest with tag. Now what we want to do is where it says store the variable, we want to store the nearest object with the tag when we pick up when we hit the P key. I'm sorry, not the P key, but the C key. So what I'm going to do is select my tag, pick up. I'm going to change this radius to like, I don't know, like 2 for now. And so we're going to get the nearest thing here. All right. And so this is going to store, as soon as we hit the the key, the C key, it's going to store this object into our variable. All right. All right. And then the next thing we want to do is change the player. So we want our player to not be able to move. So we're going to change his property to uncontrollable. So is he controllable? We want that to be false. All right. And then the next thing we want to do is go ahead and change the player state. So I'm going to just type in state, and we want to change the character state. All right, so the first thing we want to do here is going to be we're going to select animation clip, and then we need to put in an animation here. Now, you may not get the actual asset that I'm using for animations, and that's okay. You don't have to. You can just use any pickup animation clip, but I already have that, so I'm going to go type in pickup, and I'm going to do carry overhead pickup, okay? All right, awesome. So we have this here. We're not going to need the mask, I think, for this portion just yet. So we'll leave that one blank. All right, and then the next thing we want to do is do a look at. And I believe what we want to do is look at the game object that we're picking up. So we want the player to face that object. All right, and it should work. And let's see here, what's next? And the next thing we want to do is change the properties of that object that we're picking up. So this is called the rigid body. We want to change the rigid body of the box. Right now, the box has rigid body. So when you, right now it picks up, when you walk around, you knock it over, it moves, right? But we don't want it to have any of those functions when we're holding it. It'll mess with the player. So we want to basically turn all that stuff off. And let's see here. So I think what we want to do is set this to global variable, and it's going to be pickup. And that's pretty much it for this one. And then on the other one, we're putting it down. We're going to reassign these values to it. Okay. All right. So the next thing we want to do in this case is we're going to add a little bit of weight to it. And not weight, but some time. We're going to have some time there. Let's see, I think maybe about 0.5. And the next thing we want to do is assign the variable, because we're actually picking it up. So we want our variable to basically know that we are now carrying this object. So set that to true. Okay. All right, great. All right. And so now that we're saying that we have this object in our possession, we need to actually have it in our possession. So we need to attach this game object to the player. So I'm going to select the attachment by typing in the word attach, or you can just go to character attachment that way. We're going to take the player, we're going to attach to the right hand, and we're going to do it based on the global variable, and it's going to be the pickup object right there. Okay. And that should be good. Now, in terms of the position and the rotation, we're going to set that once we get done with this, and I'll show you how that works. All right, and so the next thing that we want to take a look at is we're going to give this another little weight. And I'm just going to put it at 1 second. And then what we're going to do is change the player's animation. So we're going to type in the word state, and these are just quicker to get to it. So change character state. And here what we want to do is change it to a animation clip. And we want this animation clip to be the carry overhead. So, and it's going to be the idle. Okay. So carry overhead idle. And we want to now use the mask that we created. So I'm going to select the top body no head one that I created here. They also have a crafter upper body one that you can probably use, but this is the one that I created. We'll play with that if we have any issues. And then now that we've done all that, all we have to do is make our character controllable. So I'm just going to go to character and change property. And we just want to set him to controllable, because in the very beginning, we set him to not be controllable here. All right. So let's take a look to see what all of those messages, all of these actions are doing for us. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And I'm going to go ahead and hit play. All right. So we have our player here. So I'm going to walk over to this box, and I'm going to hit our C key. Our C key, remember, is our trigger here, and then we have a condition. Our condition is going to check if we're carrying, and you can look at your preferences variables. We're currently not carrying an object, right? It's false. So this should pick it up. Perfect. And so now we have our player, and he is running with this object, as you can see. All right. And right now you see the pickup shows the cube 6 and is carrying it set to true. And that's good. And that's what we want. He's currently carrying, and that works pretty good. So now, as you can see, the positioning of the box is kind of in his face. So what we're going to do to change that, let me go ahead and move this out the way. I'm going to go ahead and take care of it right now. So we have our player here. I move my game view over so we can select that. So I'm going to go into the actual editor view, and I'm going to select the box. And what we're going to do here is, if you have your gizmos, say for instance your gizmos are like too big, you hit this drop down. Like if they're like this, all in your face, you can just reduce the size of this, or you can change them to 3D icons, but I typically leave them like this and change them based on my needs. All right, or you can just turn them off entirely. It's completely up to you. But what I'm gonna do is move this into place. So I'm gonna select this box, and as you can see, the box is connected to the right hand because now it's attached there. So I'm gonna move this up like that. And the animation is not the best for this because it's kind of his hand is also in his head. And we can always change that animation out later, but for now I think it's gonna work just fine. And then I'm just gonna get this box kind of the way that we think it would be. Maybe kind of like that. That could work. And we actually could put it like this. And I'll move it over like that. And I could put it in his head a little bit, maybe. I mean, it is a video game, right? All right, cool. All right, so there's a position that we can do. And so if I go ahead and put this back large, so now it kind of looks like this, and that's not too bad. That works pretty good. All right, cool. All right, so now what we want to do is I have this box here selected, and then the transform information, we need this transform information. So I'm going to copy that. Okay, so I'm going to do a snipping tool, and the reason is because you can't change it while it's in play mode. So I'm just going to get this information and move it off to the side so I can put it in. So now I'm going to hit play. Everything is going to go back to what it was before. But when I select the actions and I go down to the pickup part, so where is it? It is attaching. So we're going to change those values here. So the position is going to be here. So my position is going to be 0.0355. We're going to do negative 0.0217. And we're going to do for Z, we're going to do 0.0022. And then for rotation, we're going to do negative 8.71. We're going to do 13.355 and negative 14.365. Cool. All right, so now let's verify that that's going to work. All right, cool. So we walk over, hit that, and there we go. So now our player is doing what he should be doing, is carrying an object and jumping with it. And it works pretty good. Of course, like I said, the arms are kind of in the head. It'd be nice if they're kind of more outward, but we can work with this later for kind of when we try to make things look better. Okay. All right. So far that's working out pretty good. So the next thing we want to take a look at will be the actual putting down the object. All right, and then so for our last trigger here is going to for the put down. So what we're going to do is change the input, and we're going to do the input of the keyboard C. Let's see here. We're going to input key on key down. We're going to select C. Of course, you can pick anything you want, but for now I'm going to use this one. And then we're going to select the conditions. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and change my conditions name and just make it conditions for now. And so these conditions need to check if we are currently carrying something, right? So if the variable is carrying is going to be true, then we need to do a set of action, right? So I'm going to go ahead and create an action. Of course, it's going to create some actions for our condition. And let's go ahead and start doing this one. So the first one, I want to do a debug message. And that debug message is going to be called putting down object. All right. And then the next thing I want to do is change my character to not controllable. So that's a change character property. And we're going to make that false. The next thing we want to do is change the player state. So we're going to do state. So this state here is going to be change the state. We're going to do an animation clip. And in this case, remember, we're currently holding the object and we need an animation to put down the object. So I'm going to look for carry overhead. Let's see, do they have one where it's putting down the object? Let's see here. We don't want to throw it. We don't want to pick it up. Let's see, we can do like a put down maybe. That one could work. Let's try that one out. All right, and so we'll do that one for the put down and we'll see how that looks. Next, we're going to do a little bit of wait for some time here between these actions. And what we're going to do is assign the bool, or assign the variable here, variable bool. And we're going to change the variable, and I'm not going to assign it. Sorry, what we're going to do is go to variable bool is carrying, and we're going to set that to false because what we're trying to do now is put the object down. And so now what I'm going to do is detach the character object. And so we're going to go player, we're going to go detach. Okay, and it's going to detach it from the right hand. Okay, and then when we do that, I'm just going to put another little weight in there. And these little weights are just because I've done this before, I know that these weights are going to help with everything setting up. So we're going to put a weight in here, and then I'm going to do a rigid body for the object. And we're going to select the game object, the global variable, and that global variable is going to be whatever the pickup object is. And we want to reassign those values back to those whatever object that we're holding. So what we want to do is verify what that original was for that one. So the mass is 10. So we want to set this back to 10. And then the gravity, we want to give it back as gravity. And is kinematic, we want to make that false. Okay. All right. Great. All right. And then the next thing we want to do is go to character, and we want to reset the state for the character back to default after all of this has been done. So what I'm going to do is change player, and we're going to do reset. There we go. And then after all that is done, we need to give our character its movement back. So I'm going to copy this one, just simply do that and hit that. And so we should be good there. Let's hopefully this all works as intended. And I'm going to go ahead and hit play. All right, cool. So we still have all the movements that we originally wanted. And so let's walk over to this object. When we walk over to the object, our pickup trigger is active. When we walk away, it's not active. If I hit the C key, it picks up our object. And there we go. If I hit the C key now to put it down, it puts it down and we can walk away. And we go over to this one. We can pick it up. It's overhead. Works pretty good. Put it down. There we go. Perfect. And all right, cool. And that works pretty good. All right. All right, so that works pretty good. So what else do we need to look at when it comes to picking up an object? That's everything is working. It feels good, but what are we missing? So let's hit play and see. So when we pick up the object, we can go ahead and pick it up. But what if I want to now get through here? I want to crawl, right? Well, I'm going to hit my control key to crawl. and I can crawl, but I don't want to be able to crawl. You shouldn't be able to crawl. Now you got all types of issues. So what we want to do is disable or set inactive the crawl mechanic, because we don't want that mechanic to work when we're holding an object, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so it's pretty easy at this point. So all we have to do is look at what we want to do. When we're currently picking up an object, I'm going to go ahead and reduce these. And I'm going to go add action. I'm going to go set active. And what I want to do is take this crawl and I'm going to move it here. And I'm going to go inactive, all right, or false. And then I'm going to copy this and go into put down actions. And I'm going to make these smaller. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to paste it in here and I'm going to make that active. And so hopefully that gives us the ability to just not crawl by just simply turning it off. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. All right, so we're going to walk over to this object, hit our button to pick it up. And now I want to go here, but I can't. So if I were to hit the crawl key, you can't just crawl, right? You can't go into a crawl because you're holding an item. You need to put the item down, then go into a crawl. But it looks like, there we go. So now we're crawling. All right, perfect. And now we can pick it up. And now we can't crawl, which is great. And I'm gonna go ahead and put this item down. I wanna crawl. And just like that, we can't jump when we crawl, right? We have to stand up and then we can jump. And those are the type of thoughts you got to think about, I think, when doing that. And it makes it pretty easy. There might be other ways to approach it, but I find that to be pretty effective when doing it. All right, great. All right, so one more thing we want to take a look at. Now, there's a reason why I named this pickup_small, because what if we pick up a larger item? Well, let's see what that looks like. So what we want to do is create a larger item. So I'm going to take, say, this one and just scale it back up to 1. So that's a bigger item than the rest of them. Okay, and what I'm going to do is go to my tags and go to add tag. And I'm going to hit the plus key. I'm going to call it pickup_LRG, or just do it like that. And we're going to go large. And so what I want to do now is go back to this item and just assign that tag there. Now, I haven't tried this before, so I'm going to go ahead and work on it now. But it should be simple enough, right? All right, so we have this pickup large. All right, so the next thing we want to do is see what we need to do that. So I'm going to take this object and take this particular mechanic, and I'm going to duplicate this mechanic. And actually, before I do that, let me hit save. All right, I'm going to hit Control D, and now we have that. I'm going to rename it to LRG. Okay, so now we probably need to just go in here and change a few things. All right, so the first thing we're checking, if we entered this object, we need to change the object with tag. So I'm going to change this to large. Okay, let's take a look at the actions. The actions entered tag or entered large tag. I guess I can do that. That's fine. And then let's take a look at our conditions. So if carrying is false, we're going to leave carrying. And because carrying is carrying no matter what object you're carrying. And then we're going to look at the action. The action is set active picking up object. So that's fine. All right, so we're going to do not in range. Let's take a look at that one. We're going to change this one to large. And let's take a look at its actions. Not in range, not in large range. So I'll change that just to confirm what we're not in range of. And then of course picking up, we'll leave that like that. Now in terms of the picking up actions, on key down it's going to be the same key. And let's see what else we get here. So there's a few things we probably want to check here. So if carrying is false, we're going to look at the actions. So we're going to get the nearest tag with large. There you go. We're going to leave everything the same. We're just going to change the tag name. These things should stay the same. The state, we'll leave the state the same for now. Let's see here. The position, the pickup variable is carrying is fine. That is fine. We're going to leave the state define. All right, great. And then I'm going to take a look at the put down, and is carrying, put down large object, and I think we're going to leave all of these things the same as well. And the properties, of course, can probably change, but we'll leave that there. All right, so let's just verify that we can still pick up both objects, small or large. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And we're getting something here, but I'll have to take a look at that later. And let's see here. So I'm going to go over to this. Entered large tag. Of course, we can pick it up. It's huge, right? So it's too big. But we're in the large tag. We're going to put that down, and there you have it. So yeah, so we can set it up to have a couple of different types of recognizing different size items. So what's the benefit of that? So we can do one change to make it different from this one, other than just the name. So in the pickup action, what we want to do is on key down actions, I can create an action that actually changes the player's run speed. So for instance, we can go character, property, and we can change the run speed to something like, I don't know, like not 0.2, but maybe like 2 or even like 1. And then I'll copy that and then go back to the actions here. And at the very end, I can set his default back to 4. We should probably be using variables for this, by the way, but for now, I'm just going to do that. Set it back to 4. And so now when I pick up this one, it's a pretty light box. He should be able to continue to run as fast as he needs to. That's fine. But if I put it down and he goes over to this box, he's going to move a little slower because it is harder to run. Now, of course, I hit the shift key. Now we're in a run state. But those are the type of ways that we can manipulate picking up different types of objects based on their size and all of that. So in this case, let's see here. So if I wanted to change to remove the ability to run, what do you think I would probably do? What I can do is just set active run and turn it off and on, basically. That may be the quickest way to go about it. So, so what we can do is go here and set active, and we'll just look for our run mechanic, put it in here, turn it off, and then turn it on when we put it down. And that should do it. And we'll just do one more test before we call this done. So if I go here, pick this guy up, he can barely move because of it. If I try to run, it doesn't run. If I put it down, now we can get faster. He can run with this one, so that works out pretty good. Put it down. If we try to crawl with this, it won't work because we already had it set up. Let's go ahead and put it down. We'll be able to crawl. You can run a little faster with that. That works out pretty good. Perfect. All right. All right, so I think that's pretty much it for what we're going to work with picking up an object. I hope that was useful, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I think I'll start with another mechanic. It may be either melee or it may be swimming. We're not sure. All right, so I'll see you guys in the next video. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. For the next set of videos, I'll be releasing one every day at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. So, to stay up to date on the latest 3D platforming tutorial, feel free to subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support, you can find me on Patreon, or of course you can hit me up on Discord. I like to talk about whatever project you guys are working on. Of course, thanks for hanging with me. Your support is always appreciated. As always, remember, never give up and keep moving forward. Peace.